Religiously cocky people are one of my biggest pet peeves, and I can't stand these people because these people think that they are above the rest and they make religion and God out of themselves. People who are religiously cocky are not God's people, because God's people do not judge their relationship with God, and we do not judge anybody else's relationship with God because God sits within us. I'm a firm believer of religion causing division, and I've always felt as an outcast when it comes to religion because I believe God does not have any shape, color, form, and I believe in God, a higher source who is of the light, and we all have a dark side to us, so therefore we pray to the underworld as well to follow the light and to bring balance. Unfortunately, religiously cocky people, just because they show up in worship places and just because they do everything right, just because they are in the mainstream when it comes to various religious groups, there's always a head. And these people always want to be at the top, and they always want to judge everybody who do not practice the religious practices that they do, and they claim us to be blasphemers. So you are judging, right? Because what God says, you're not supposed to judge another human being because God sits within us. Religion makes God out of people and out of things outside of us, is what I believe. And therefore, as a spiritual person, I have a direct contact with my source of the highest white light, who I don't put any name, any color, any religion, any creed, any caste into, because that makes you feel you're better than the other. And some people don't feel they're as good as you just because you have this facade going on for years and years and decades, where a lot of people want to pray to God, but they want to dictate how we pray to God. You want to dictate how we have a relationship with our Almighty? And what makes you think that just because we don't show up as you show up in a place of worship, that you are a better individual? Because at the end of the day, who sits inside you? What are your intentions? And you are now going to sit there and judge every man, every woman who do not have the right hair, who do not have the right clothes, who do not have the right religion, who do not have the right caste, who do not have the right background, for you to consider them to be holy, for you to think that they are not loved by God. Who the hell are you to even think that God don't love them? And what makes you think that you have the right to say God prefers you over other people? Why are you so special? And many a times there are people who show up in a lot of holier places and look all proper, but everybody knows what they're doing behind everybody's back. Everybody knows who is a devil's follower, who is a devil worshipper in the name of God. And these are the same people most times who cringe at somebody who's really of light, because when people are really of light, God sits within them. So what in your sense makes you holier than thou? And when God sits within you, you don't judge other people. If God is really within you, you are so busy building that relationship with God, you may not show up to those traditional practices that everybody goes to for face value sometimes, and they want to judge everybody else. You automatically know that these people are busy judging other people, so their focus is not even on God. And these people want to show up in places where God is worshipped and prayed upon, and they want to look down upon people like us and you, who actually have a relationship with God, who actually do not have any pretense when it comes to the Almighty. You have faith. You go through life's trials and tribulations, and when God puts you through trials and tribulations, you're not the one to run away from God and be like, who the hell God is, I don't like this. But instead, you're like, God, you're putting me through it. It is what it is. Let's go. Even when there are people like these who slander you in the name of God, on face value, people believe them, you still keep quiet. Why? Because light is in you. And when light is within you, you don't go after people proving your faith. And these are the same people, if you do show up in a place of worship, to comment on, look at her, look at him, they're showing up now, look at how he showed up, look at how she showed up here. Because they feel that they do their morning, their afternoon, their evening processions, and whatever it may be, they think that they hold the key to God. God is neutral. God don't care if you're black, white, pink, blue, purple, yellow. And they don't care if you're poor, you're rich. You are karma. You deserve what you deserve. You get what you get, and you earn what you earn. And if you understand the laws of karma and how God works and how He sees your heart, God is love. God is intention. God is not what you show on face value. You're so used to living in the 3D reality and material world, you only want to show. For you, it's all about how people perceive you when it comes to your religious practices. But do you really have a relationship with God? Will God show up for you? Are you good people? Or you have good intentions about other people? Or are you just judging people because you think that you are holier than thou, because you have a relationship on face value for the world to see how connected you are with God? But are you really? Are you really connected with your own soul, with yourself? Do you believe in God or do you believe in the devil? Because we are all dark and light. We all praise the devil, we all praise the God in one way, shape, or form. Because your ego is your devil too. You live it. We don't live it, we watch it, some of us. Just because people don't show and look the way you're supposed to be does not mean they don't have a relationship with God. Hell, they may just be God's favorite. So bear in mind and be very careful who you blaspheme against, because people who are actually believers and who love God, they can do things for God, and that means if they want to show up in a place of worship 24/7, they'll be there, but they'll be there for themselves. They're not there to slander and to create gossip and to hate on other people who don't show up. And when people show up, they're not there to gossip about them. These people go to temples, to churches, and any other place of worship it may be, for them to feel good, for them to feel connected to God, and that's their way to connect. So when you people blaspheme tarot, meditation, channeling, it's something that you don't know, and just because you don't know, you judge people. These are holy tools, these are holy practices to connect to the higher power, to heal. And there's some people who are born with certain gifts, and there's some people who develop these gifts through their ancestors and their life's purpose. And therefore, everybody's purpose is different, and therefore it's called a soul tribe, because through your purpose, you connect with other people with similar likes, with similar gifts. So when you blaspheme honest and true people with true connection with God, just because the way they connect to the Almighty is different, and that can be through cards, through channeling, through meditation, through speaking, through writing, whatever, you think that it's a facade, you think that it is going against God. Many times in the olden age, people connected with God through these tools. Unfortunately, people use these tools to blaspheme now, so they're fakes. And this is the devil's playground, like I always say. So I'm not shocked that people are using God's name in vain, and therefore they're using all the tools. Those were sacred practices back in the day, is now used by every Tom, Dick, Harry, and they all want to call themselves spiritual. And therefore spirituality has a very negative rep, thanks to cocky religious people who are not really God believers, because if they were believers, they wouldn't care how people connect with God, as long as people are good people with good intentions and of light. But unfortunately, we have a bad rep because of fake spiritualists here who follow the dark, who worship the dark, and the fake religiously cocky people who are just religious to show to the world. But do you pray? And if you pray, why are you praying? And what are you saying in your prayers? At the end of the day, your life is yours. Your relationship with your God is yours. You can't put God in a pocket. God is a soul. God is a spirit. You're going to put gods in different pockets and then make versions out of it and then tell people how to pray. And people who don't believe that, and people who believe in God as one spirit, and we don't really do any division between gods across any cultures and religion that exist, we are the wrong people for that, and we are worshipping the devil? Make it make sense. And what is the proof that you actually are not doing that in face value, just because you show up every day or every second day to the holy place of worship, and everybody around you thinks, oh my God, this woman is of God, this man is of God. Who knows what you're doing behind everybody's back? Just because you have that facade going on in everybody else's face, you're very easy to flip the coin when the lights go down. So we don't really know who do you pray to, because if you can go out of the line and tell everybody else do not follow and look like a person who is of God is not of God. At the end of the day, I will never believe all these grand religious gestures, and I come from a place where we do have a lot of religious practices, and I respect it all, I love it all, irrespective of what my background is, and I can choose to go anywhere I want to if I want to. But at the end of the day, people really need to stop judging people who do not show up in these religious practices just because their way of worship to God is different. Just because they have a way of expressing their love to God through their own way of practices does not make them a non-believer or a devil worshipper. So for the rest of us, let's continue talking to God like a friend, and all those who make fun of you, how friendly you are for the way you speak with God, ask them to shut the because they only want to tell you how you must pray and how you must talk to God. Nobody should tell you how you should have a relationship with your God. You know what light is, you know who's speaking to you, and you know exactly the downloads that you're getting, and you know the advice that you're getting. At the end of the day, God sits in your heart, and God will never sit in someone's heart whose heart is dark. People can show up in worship places, people can show up in the most holiest places and act holier than thou, but nobody really knows who they really are. And if they're going to invest the time and energy to further spread hate, to further spread anger, further make somebody feel small in their skin, that is not a person of God. That is not a person who is of a good spirit. That person needs cleansing. That person needs to heal. And it's probably because you have a connection with God and such an easy flowing connection with God. They are probably jealous because they do not even have that relationship with God, and they wonder why you are favored. The reason you are favored is because you're good people. At the end of the day, there's no rules on how you must pray and why one is favored, one is not. They all know their karma. You know your karma. You know what's going on in your heart. And at the end of the day, God hears conversations that nobody hears. God hears things that you say about other people and yourself as well. So people really need to stop focusing on anybody else's prayer practice and if they are a person of God, but instead focus on building a relationship with God. And if you are a bitter, sour person who puts God in pockets, and therefore you put people and what background and what color and what country, what language, what caste, what religion they come from, and according to that you'll give them importance, you're not a person of God. I don't care if you show up in the place of worship every day, and if you're of the head there, you are an evil person because you judge people. And people who judge people without even having a direct connection with that human being, just because you don't like that individual for the way they show up, you want to judge their prayer practice just because they don't follow yours. Check yourself and ask God, why are you so broken and bitter? And if you really want to test somebody's connection to God, you will never know until you test it. But God forbid, if you test God's connection with evil intent, you already know who is going to lose. Karma and God work hand in hand. Sometimes a bad person will do bad things onto a bad person. God will allow that because that is a lesson. Either they both learn it, or either they continue to be the evil human beings that they are, and they inflict it on other people, because either you get worse and bitter people get even more bitter, or they get better. And that's how God and karma work together. They don't care how much money you spend on God, how much practices you do on Him, as long as you're pure, your intentions are clean, and you're good people, and you make others feel good. And real will always recognize real, and real will always love real. And if you are genuine in your love for God, you will attract those type of people. And if you attract those type of people, you'll never have these type of conversations where you judge others' religious practices and are religiously cocky, where you think only your practice is right because you have your God. Just think about these things. Change the way you've lived your life so far, however old or young you may be. You're not important. Why are you so special? Why are you so important? Why is your God so important? And when did it become your God and my God? Why is that? Why are you so broken? And why are you so judgmental? And why do you judge people from where they come and who they are and who they are not? Why are you acting God? If you're praying to God, pray to God. Don't be God.